hello again, everyone. Welcome to Cotton Grower Magazine's Cotton Companion podcast. With the end of its crop progress reports for 2023, it appears USDA has declared cotton harvest all but complete. Now, their final report on November 27th showed that 83% of this year's crop was out of the field, and I'm sure the rest is either out or following very soon, which means gins are running full throttle across the Cotton Belt, and we're going to start seeing those final production numbers shortly after the first of the year. I'm Jim Stedman, editor of Cotton Grower, and I'm flying solo again today as my colleague and friend Beck Barnes is away on business for a few days. So once again, we're going to keep things short and simple for this episode. As all of you dear listeners know, it's been another roller coaster of a year for cotton. From one end of the Cotton Belt to the other, something or sometimes multiple somethings have impacted cotton production. It's never easy, but those natural and man-made obstacles often make it that much more difficult. So with most of the crop at the gin, we're going to sit back and take a little breather and visit with Dr. Bill Robertson. He's a retired Arkansas cotton specialist, now living life as a conservation agronomist from his home base in Bradford, Arkansas. Bill's been an active part of cotton production for many years, and he always brings a unique perspective to any discussion. We're going to bring him on in just a couple minutes, so be sure to stay tuned for some true pearls of wisdom and other thoughts from Bill. But first, our sponsor partner, the American Cotton Shippers Association, has a brief message they'd like to share.
The American Cotton Shippers Association, also known as ACSA, is a trade association primarily made up of cotton merchants founded in 1924. ACSA members manage the majority of the world's cotton trade, providing services of merchandising, delivery logistics, and risk management to their customers. ACSA is proud to be celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. Join them in Scottsdale, Arizona in June 2024 for their centennial celebration event.
Well, thanks to our friends at ACSA for that message and certainly for their support. Now, before we get to our discussion with Bill Robertson, we do have a bit of breaking news to share that'll likely be good news to some cotton growers in certain geographies. After successfully completing a comprehensive Endangered Species Act consultation process, Corteva's Enlist herbicides appear poised for expanded use in formerly restricted counties in key growing regions across the U.S. Now, this ESA review was initially conducted by the EPA and largely confirmed by consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The result is a final biological opinion that supports the restoration of previously restricted counties, including counties in Georgia and Texas, for use of Enlist herbicides and eliminating all whole county application restrictions, which in effect broadens the farmers' future access to the entire line of Enlist herbicide products. Now, Corteva is urging applicators to continue to abide by current product labels until supplemental labels are issued, and certainly consult with your local sales professional about how these upcoming changes may apply to individual operations. In addition to following current label guidelines, growers and applicators should refer to the Endangered Species Protection Bulletins, which will include targeted sub-county restrictions in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas. Well, now we're going to open our virtual Cotton Companion studio and welcome our longtime friend and now self-proclaimed conservation agronomist, Bill Robertson, back to the podcast. Bill, it's been too long since you've joined us, so welcome back to the Cotton Companion.
Jim, I appreciate the invite and always happy to join you and talk about cotton or whatever whatever's going on.
Whatever it is we need to talk about,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Now,
extension people, we never turn down an opportunity to talk.
that's whether you're still on the payroll or retired too, right?
Yeah, well, kind of, extension, is just kind of, it's part of you. You're either made for extension or you're not. And my wife and I are both extension people, so we enjoy the opportunity to talk about things.
Well, that's good, because one thing about it, folks may or may not be aware that of course, you did retire from University of Arkansas almost a year ago, but I know you haven't slowed down a bit. That's just not really your nature. What has year one of retirement been like for you? And what exactly is a conservation agronomist?
We'll start off on what's it been like. And when I first stopped going to work every day, well, I just had a lot of Saturdays. It was Sunday when we went to church, but every other day was Saturday. And I'd be driving into town and I'd see a school bus on the road. I thought, what is a school bus doing driving on a Saturday? And there was a little getting used to there. I've kind of got into a swing now. I did a little bit of consulting with the Soil Health Institute, and then
Mhm.
kind of when you get in with Arkansas Soil Health Alliance, even though I wasn't with the university anymore, I was still highly involved in them and still part of the Soil Health Subcommittee meeting with the NRCS, so active with that. Um, got busy here at the farm. My wife had been the full-time farmer, and I was the spouse of the job in town, so we could have insurance. And after retired, started spending more time here at the farm because before I was just a weekend farmer.
Right.
And and my wife, her folks are we're all getting more birthdays. I'm moving a little slower. My hands have been hurting with arthritis and all this. But anyway, her mom and dad, we help get them to the doctors, and it seems like they're going to the doctors a little more, and I'm going to the doctor a little more here and there. And she's got an elderly aunt, and then my wife teaches ag classes at Ozarka Community
Mhm.
College at Melbourne, and also at UACCB in Batesville. And so there's a lot of things here on the farm that have to be done every day, and when she's gone or whatever, then that leaves me to do the chores. So I've really picked up the slack on taking care of things. We've got a lot of things going on. We've got some polled Hereford cows that are registered cows, and we have a few commercial cows. But it got to where, we sell bulls. A lot of
Mhm.
people have Angus background cattle, and they like to take baldies to the sale barn, so they're always looking for a good Hereford bull. So we do pretty good selling bulls. But it got to where we weren't, besides selling bulls, we're not making a lot of money with cows. So we kind of thinned our cows out, and we've gotten heavier into sheep. We've got pretty close to 250 ewes now
Oh,
and about
goodness.
50 goats. And then, we quarantine horses, and we have some horses and donkeys and mules, and my wife has a, another small business on the side with a commercial hatchery. She raises heritage exhibition birds.
Mhm.
So we have chickens, ducks, turkeys, and geese. And so we have those all separated by breed and breeding pens, and everyone's got a water bucket that needs to be cleaned out and have to be fed every day. And then we have some pasture pigs and we have chickens, ducks, turkeys, and geese. And so we have quite an assortment of things. So we're always the ones that folks call on, and we love Carrie and I love doing this for petting zoos. We do a lot of things, kind of circle it back to ag awareness that we
Mhm.
do with churches and schools here locally. And so we enjoy doing that, and we're still active. We enjoy working with kiddos. So in our county fair, we live in Jackson County, Arkansas, and we have our county fair in conjunction with Cross County and Woodruff County. And
Mhm.
I say my wife is the superintendent of the livestock part on that. So we help with the kiddos there with the rabbits and the chickens and the other livestock for the show. And we're also active at the state fair. Uh, but my wife and I are superintendents of the dairy goat show and the breeding sheep show. So that keeps us busy.
I'm
Oh,
beginning to wonder if you've actually retired at all. Yep.
yeah, well, the Farm Bureau
Or have you just shifted careers at this point?
just kind of shifted careers. Farm Bureau has both Carrie and I are on the board. Carrie rolled off a couple of years ago is our county president here in Jackson County. Jackson County is a rice county,
Mhm.
and so it was a little unusual. Carrie was the first female to hold the office as county Farm Bureau president. And most all the other producers are livestock. I mean, not livestock. We're the only livestock when the others are row crops with rice, corn, and beans. And we have a lot of leadership in those commodities here in Arkansas. So we feel very fortunate to to be able to be a part of Farm Bureau, and they elected me onto the board this year. And another thing going on is we were the 2023 Jackson County Farm Family of the Year
That's great.
here in our.
Congratulations.
And so I think that's the first time a non-row crop farm has been Farm Family of the Year in Jackson County. So we're staying pretty busy with things.
Sounds good. Well, during your tenure on the academic and extension side, and even looking back in some of the previous roles with National Cotton Council and other groups, you've been a big proponent of soil health. And I know you mentioned you're doing some work with the Soil Health Institute right now. How did you get interested and involved in that? And from your perspective, how far have those practices advanced over the past decade or so?
Yeah. Well, I really got interested in that when I was working with the National Cotton Council. And I think as most agronomists, I know myself as an agronomist, I really, except for, doing nutrient analysis or, taking soil samples, I was really mostly just concerned with what was going on above the soil surface on a cotton
Sure.
plant or corn or beans or whatever else I was growing. And then when I started with the Cotton Council, the sustainability was coming on, and I never really give a lot of thought to the supply chain and what the supply chain needs and wants in the raw products they source. And the sustainability thing come along, and the Field to Market Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture had the field print calculator, and Andy Jordan and I did a lot of work, and we ran a couple of pilots to just see if that calculator would work for cotton. And he had a pilot in Louisiana, and I went back to my home country in the Southern High Plains of Texas and had a pilot there, and we helped that program come a long ways, and it fit for cotton.
Mhm.
And so when we looked at what the supply chain wanted is to be more sustainable, the biggest thing we could do was it all goes back to improving soil health. And so that's when I got started into that. And you can't sell something to somebody if you don't believe it and understand it yourself,
Mhm.
Jim. And
That's it.
so there were a lot of things I had to learn about soil health, and the quickest way for us, especially here in the Mid-South, to improve soil health is to utilize cover crops and reduce tillage. Because, if you look at what NRCS, there's four basic things we can do to improve soil health. And one is to armor the soil, to keep it covered, keep residue on that soil surface. That helps um, with our temperature, cooler temperatures, and helps retain soil moisture. Having living roots in the soil as many months out of the year as you can. And and I don't know if I may be getting a little long because you may have to wind me down a little bit, but Jim, I remember back in college and graduate school, taking a plant physiology course, and we talked about root exudates. And there's so many the Krebs cycle and all these different cycles and counting ATPs and all this stuff was all overwhelming for a farm boy like me. But when we got into root exudates, it just seemed like the silliest thing ever. And my main thought on that was, okay, is this going to be on the test? Because I just wanted to discount root exudates, but root exudates are a big part of improving soil health. Uh, and I didn't realize this till I started learning more about soil health and root exudates and all that a corn plant, when it's very actively growing, I've seen papers where they feel like it leaks 70% of all the sugars that it makes in a day over the course of the year, between 35 and 40%. So the plants are feeding and tending the microbes in the soil, just like as farmers,
Mhm.
livestock farmers, we feed and tend to our livestock. They are feeding and tending to theirs. And it's so interesting that plants can can leak out certain compounds to signal the soil microbes to get them specific thing, so they communicate back and forth. And the first time you hear things like that, you think, oh, that's BS. I know when I started getting into this, that BS flag went up the flagpole a whole lot of times. And I visit with people and say, okay, we got a hard pan, what do we need to do? I say, well, plant a deep rooted cereal crop. and that'll go a long way toward reducing compaction. So, well, I already got a hard pan. Do I need to break that out? Oh, no, no, no. Once I started doing a cover crop, I never had to do any deep tillage. Poof, there goes the BS flagpole, or BS flag at the flagpole. And so I got into that, and and I found that it was true. So we cover the soil, we have living roots. The root exudates are so important, and having diversity and having different things leaking in the soil, different things growing in the soil. Because you know, like me, I've heard people say, when you go to a salad bar, and I'm this way, when you go to a salad bar, I don't just get one thing. I like a lot of different things. Well, the microbes in the soil are the same way. They like a lot of different things. Look at deer, look at goats.
Mhm.
They are highly, they desire a lot of diversity in their diet. And then so those three things really go a long ways toward helping build soil structure. And so the number four thing is to not destroy that soil structure, so reduce our tillage. So those big four things are what we can do to improve soil health. And so I started trying to learn those things. I visit with farmers and have to figure out, okay, that can't be true. And then I'll look at it, say, okay, it is true. And then from the science part in me, say, okay, why is that true? And
Mhm.
so I learned a lot of those things. But I first started here on the farm. So I was working in the National Cotton Council. I wasn't working in a cotton field. And so I was trying those things here in our pastures. And it was just amazing to me with the farm we bought, it was pretty cheap. And then recently it's cheap. The lady owned it before, bless her heart. She had a lot of horses, and horses are just terrible on pastures, and compaction was out of this world. And there was a couple of cows here on the farm that came along with the farm because nobody could catch them. So they just stayed here, and the cow patties would just hang around forever because there was no life in the soil.
Yeah.
And so I started trying some of these things. And Richard Petcher in Alabama, I went to a presentation. I know it used to be the cotton short course. Now it's the row crop short course going on in Mississippi right now. I met him there, and he was talking about cover crops. I said, okay, I got to try this. And so he set me up on some things. I learned a lot working with him and working on pastures. And it worked so good on pastures. All of a sudden, those cow patties disappeared when we got a big rain. The rain soaked in; it didn't all run off, and our species over multiple years or several years, I noticed a change in the species on what was growing into pastures. So it worked really good in pastures. So I thought, okay, if this works good in pastures, it has to work in row crops. So it just finally got on my radar screen. So then I go out there and look, and there's farmers that are already doing this. Tim Smith had brought me out to his farm not long after I came to Arkansas, or some of the farmers he was working with, to show me some of these things. And I thought, oh yeah, this can't be, whatever, whatever, it can't be right, because that BS flag went at the flagpole, and I didn't make the time to really get into that some, but these things are real. And and so there's a lot we've done to improve our farm by concentrating on soil health. And then there's some farmers that we've worked with over time that I've seen some big improvements on their farm with by improving soil health. But Jim, we and I know this isn't the first time a cotton person or even any kind of production agriculture person has ever said, right now we're in between a rock and a hard place.
Mhm.
You look at the price of cotton, you look at how much things cost. I've talked, at Farm Bureau last week, at the state annual meeting. I had a chance to see a lot of farmers I've worked with over time, and a lot of said they made like the best crop ever, or the last 2 years they've made the best crops ever. But even at that, I talked to people that made over 1,600 pounds on a farm average, and that's awesome. But they're still having a hard time paying the bills.
Yeah.
And you look at the budgets, we'll have 60 cents in our cotton. And so if you're paying, 60 cents, and markets around what, mid 70s now.
Mhm.
So, if you own the land, it's not bad, but not a lot of folks own the land. So if you're paying 80%, I mean, if you got a 20% rent with no cost shares, well, that 60 cents jumps up to 6 bits or 75 cents. And that's about what the market is. So you're just you're just barely paying the bills at where our cotton market is. And we really need to be about 90 cents, but it is what it is. So if we look at what we're doing, things aren't working so good. and we know we need to do something different. But in our current economic environment, if we don't make record yields, then we're not going to pay the bills.
Right.
And so it's a very difficult decision, and it takes a lot of, you got to be a very brave person to try new things, because we don't have the luxury of getting by with producing less
Mhm.
yield, because we've got to top it out. So there's a lot of things that we can do and we could try, but we kind of get locked into doing the same old thing we've been doing, because we know how to make that work and we know what to expect from that. And so it's very difficult. There's a lot of programs out there, the climate smart programs to encourage people to try some of these new things. And I really think it's kind of like, I've got some relatives that had a knee replacement and
Mhm.
would put it off and put it off and put it off. And I think it's kind of like some of the farmers, want to try cover crops and all this and some of the things. But anyway, they put that knee replacement off, and then they got it done. They said, well, if I'd known it'd been this good, I'd have done it a long time ago. And so we're afraid to change, and because of the uncertainties and all that. But a lot of times when we do change, we think, well, we should have done this a long time ago. And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of bravery to try the new things, because if we fail, even here on our livestock and forage operation, we had one really bad dry year, and we decided, okay, we're going to borrow some money and have to buy some feed to kind of hang in. It took the next 5 year calf crops to pay off our
Mhm.
to get those loans paid off. And so in row crops the same way. One bad year, one really bad year, it'll take 5 years to overcome that.
Yeah.
And so, we just, if we're going to keep farming and not have to look for that job in town, and we gotta keep doing kind of the same thing. So we're really tough. I know some of the soil health things and going into regenerative cotton production. I really think, from the science end of that, that's the way we've got to go. But you get science and then you get the politics involved. Some of the people to get cotton certified regenerative, one size didn't fit all.
Right.
How many times in the real world do things look like the picture in the book? Not very often.
Nope.
And some of the people writing rules want to make everything look like the picture in the book, and it don't work that way. And so the science on regenerative cotton and then the actual practice of regenerative cotton, in my opinion, don't line up very well. But I think some of those practices, improving soil health, I think is the first place we got to go. But I got a lot of calls this summer from people that that I worked with over time, or they have done cover crops on their own and talked about, where the fields that they farm, because they have some landlords that are good with that and some landlords that aren't. And in the fields where they had cover crops on, they were able to get by with way less irrigation, had to start watering.
Mhm.
Um, the soil moisture carried them a lot longer through the season. And so they were able to grow that cotton cheaper, and they were so proud of their cotton, because that cotton where they had cover crops looked better than the other cotton. And so it's there. It's just we and it works. It just takes you got to be brave to do it.
I think right now the key is you got to be brave to do almost anything right now.
Yeah, right.
And it doesn't matter what profession you're in, or or other situations. It's yeah, there's a lot of squirreliness out there that
Yeah.
is not always comfortable at the moment. Now you mentioned, you talk to friends and folks who are still involved in the cotton business there in Arkansas. Um, and I looked up USDA's numbers, final numbers, their final numbers, they say, uh, from October, saying that Arkansas had about 510,000 acres of cotton this year.
Yeah.
Uh, what's your best guess? Where do you think those acres are they going to be about the same, or what are you hearing? They're going to be up? They're going to be down in the state next year?
Well, I really think the the people that have commitments to owning cotton equipment,
Hmm.
the commitments in the gin, I really feel like our sustainable cotton acres are going to be in and around 500,000 acres.
Okay.
Was it a couple years ago we had a little over 600,000. We
Hmm.
had some good prices. The the insurance. We had a lot of new people get into cotton for various reasons. So those acres really took a big jump up, but then they kind of fell back down to just a little bit above that 500,000 acre mark. And I really think that's, when we look at people that are in it for the long term to grow cotton, and some of the new guys they're in it. They
Mm-hmm.
you know they made big commitments buying with the pickers and all that. They made commitments to be in it for the long haul. But I really think in around that 500,000 acres is where we're going to stay unless something really crazy comes along.
Yeah. Okay. Now this year you have taken on a slightly different role. You haven't mentioned it, but I will, as a frequent contributor to Cotton Grower. And certainly I appreciate that, and I believe our readers appreciate it as well. Now you
Well, glad
recently,
to hear that.
yeah,
Glad to hear
you
that.
you recently wrote about things that growers need to keep in mind when selecting their cotton varieties for next season. Can you recap some of those recommendations for us?
Yeah. Uh, there's a lot of different places to go to get information. And I like the university, the 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 non-biased research data, and the my old crew they're still running and still working away. I think our new cotton specialist is hired or is supposed to be coming on next May. And so even the next round of variety tests will have to be in place before that new person comes on.
Mm-hmm.
But the yield information is already up online from the variety tests that they had this year. Go to I usually just Google Arkansas variety testing, and it pops up the UADA site. And you can go to cotton and look at that. And so those numbers are up. And so look at things like that. And I like to look at we've got a little bit of stability in terms of the varieties that are out there. So I like to look to kind of see how they did at various places and over the course of the years to see how stable they are. Uh, when I look at data, Dr. Borland has an excellent variety testing program in Arkansas, but he has over 50 some odd varieties.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some of our racehorse varieties. If everything is right, well, man, they go to town. But if you're a little late on this or you don't quite do uh, some of our plant growth regulators, some of the different things, then they don't shine as well as they could. And so he doesn't have the luxury of doing things like that. I know that with the large blocks that the cotton guys are doing with the university, they have a smaller number of varieties and they can manage those more timely with some of our inputs. And so they'll be a little different in yield. So a lot of times I like to look at see how they rank from one another over the course of locations. And in Arkansas, we've got the luxury of looking at some lighter soil, some heavier soil. We've got with Dr. Boland's variety test at Judd Hill, we've got he's at that location's pretty hot with vert wilt.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got places that we can go to look at different things, and he does great bacterial blight screening, and I know that's very important, especially some of our northern counties, the bacterial blight tolerance of varieties. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And so that's a very important decision when it comes to variety selection. So look at some of those things, and two, I like to kind of mix, never want to have one variety, but I want to kind of mix things up with variety maturity too, because you just can't put all your eggs in one basket. Some years, our earlier maturing varieties might do better, and some years our later maturing varieties might do better. But we also got to think about, we've got these $1 million pickers. We've got a lot of acres on those.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get those in the field as quick as we can. And so planting some early maturing varieties on the front end of your planting window so we can have a place to put a picker in the field the middle part of September here in Arkansas really does make a lot of difference because, you know, if you look our the hours we can have a machine running on the front end of the season of the harvest season is a lot more than the hours in the day toward the tail end, we got longer days and we got earlier starts. And a lot of times our soils are drier. We can cover a lot more acres. So I've heard a lot of people saying, I truly believe this myself, that a day on the front end of the harvest equals a week on the back end of the harvest. And we know nothing works good in the mud. Pickers, especially these round module pickers, they're I ride in those and visit with people, and some of them have them turned, a lot of them have them turned up and all that, and they're still a little underpowered because when you're going in that heavy gumbo mud when it's wet, picker's kind of moaning along, and then all of a sudden when that round baler kicks in, it just whoa, it really pulls it down. And so it just, things don't work good in the mud.
No.
So having having a strategy to get the picker in the field as quick as you can is certainly one. And we look at yield a lot. Also want to think about fiber quality. We've got some varieties that are pretty comparable in terms of yield. Some have better fiber quality than others, but Jim, the last few years we've had some really good weather, really good falls. It's been hard on livestock and forage guys and people planting cover crops because we've had some really dry falls, and it's hard to get some of our winter annuals going because it's just been so dry. But man, we got beans out, we got rice out, we got cotton out, really good this year. But in our cotton, the grades are really good. I've talked nearly everybody I talked to said they're overloan
Mhm.
price on their cotton with premiums and all that. And so so you're spreading that risk out. And I like, if I'm in Northeast Arkansas, I like to look at, Missouri's got a great testing program. Tyson over in
Mhm.
Tennessee's got a great testing program. So I can like to look at a lot of different things. And then the companies, they do a lot of good testing too, and compare and see how their varieties compare to one another, and get a chance to see how some of the newer varieties coming along are doing. I've heard a lot of really good things about some of the Thrive On varieties, and there's
Mhm.
some other people that's got those coming. And physiologically, I think they grow a little bit different, and I think they have a little more horsepower on the front end. And I've talked to people that have been really excited about how well some of those varieties have done on some of their poorer ground because they've got the extra horsepower, that extra up.
Mhm.
Like I talked about that picker being underpowered.
Right.
Well, these have just a little extra help there, and it seems like that's giving them a little bit of advantage. I don't know how the yields on those compare or anything, but I'm excited about some of the new technology that's coming to see how that fits in. But still, you gotta stay with what bring you to the dance, and you need to try some of the new varieties for
Mhm.
yourself, but not get uh, too overly excited about some of the new things, and put too many of your eggs in one basket and have a bad year or have a bust on them, and be looking for a job in town.
Yeah. Well, this is the time of year, as harvest has ended and plots have been picked and examined and things like that. I mean, we are literally moving into the new cotton variety introduction phase
Yeah,
of the business. And some of that will, I think, here within the next week, we'll probably get the first view of what some of those varieties are going to look like from now
yeah,
until probably in first of February, mid-February. And it's always
yeah,
an exciting time. Just, it gives the seed companies have put a lot of work into this, and they've got an awful lot of confidence in their research into varieties. And,
yeah,
I don't think nobody has brought anything out questionable in the last several years.
yeah.
Everything seems to be great.
The new varieties coming on, they have to win a lot of tests to get to where they are.
Right.
And I kind of and I have to think about that when you look at some of the large plot variety tests that the companies, I mean that the extension does, not here just in Arkansas, but in other places. When you have 10 or 12 varieties, you're all those are the cream of the crop.
Hmm.
I know when we sell bulls, Jim, we take a bunch of good bulls up there, but sometimes we'll take a bull up there that really doesn't need to work on somebody's farm as a bull.
Yeah.
But when you have that bull up there that's just kind of a mediocre bull, and you get all these other fantastic bulls, and you can really appreciate how much better those fantastic bulls are than just a mediocre bull. And so sometimes we forget about that. We look at this and all these, these 10 varieties or 12 varieties that we're testing in these large plot tests. These are all really good bulls. And sometimes, somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose.
Yeah.
But it's hard to appreciate how good they all are compared if you had just an average bull there. So I kind of think about our variety testing program like our marketing strategy when we try to sell bulls to people.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that one out there, they really can't appreciate how good some of those little bull calves are.
Yeah. That's great. So looking ahead, getting ready for another new year. What's next for you looking ahead next year? What's on your agenda?
Well, we're just gonna keep on keeping on. I know I visited with my NRCS buddies on some things, and I may look at exploring the potential to do some things with them as a TSP, a technical service provider, because there's going to be a really great need for more soil health management plans, and I don't know if to look into some of the nutrient management plans, but some of the plans that are coming along that they're going to need people to have to qualify for some of these climate smart programs that are out there.
Right.
There's going to be a really big need for people to help farmers write those plans. And I think having somebody that knows the science on that, but also understands what goes on where the rubber meets the road on the farm is very valuable. And I think there's probably some opportunity there. And I'll have the flexibility because, if Carrie can't teach class, well, I'm the substitute teacher. And so it gives me flexibility to do different things and all of this. So I'm going to still say in soil health and still stay here on the farm, but look at maybe trying to do some things along that line that gives me some flexibility.
Yeah. Well, will we see you in Fort Worth at Beltwide, just to walk in the door to see old friends?
Well, I don't know. I've always wanted to go to that the no-till conference, and it always kind of overlaps with the Beltwide.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if I'm going to make the Beltwide this year or go to Indianapolis to that no-till conference. But I'll for sure be at the Cotton and Rice conference in Jonesboro.
Sure.
It's right in my back door. That's a great conference too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Bill, thanks so much for taking time to join me today. I'm looking forward to continuing to work and visit with you on multiple topics as we move into next year. And certainly hope you and Carrie and the family have a wonderful Christmas and a very happy New Year.
Well, right back to you, and I hope your family has a good holiday too. And I always enjoy visiting with you and working with you, and so look forward to continuing that relationship.
Sounds great. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
See you, man. Bye.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Cotton Companion Podcast. Thanks again to Bill Robertson for joining in today. Thanks to the American Cotton Shippers Association for their participation and sponsorship with the Cotton Companion. And as always, thanks to you, dear listeners, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like what you heard, please be sure to spread the word and tell your friends about the Cotton Companion Podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
The Cotton Companion Podcast is produced twice monthly by Tyler Hatch and Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters for Meister Media Worldwide in lovely Willoughby, Ohio. I'm Jim Stedman, and Beck Barnes and I will be back with you in a few weeks with the first official report of new cotton varieties and some other pre-holiday news. all in the next episode of the Cotton Companion. Until then, stay safe.
Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God made a farmer